What's going on, Planet S.O.N family? It's your main man JD. For those of you who don't know, I was in the military for 10 years, and here's a random story from my time in the military. So as I'm recording this video, we're currently in the month of May. And for those of you who don't know, the month of May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And I wanted to touch on that topic just because there's a stigma with mental health in the military. And also, there's some topics that aren't talked about when we're dealing with mental health in the military. Some of those things might include the day in the life of a military member, obviously the daily stressors, and sometimes they could just be the medication that we're on. So common knowledge is that there's a small percentage of the United States population that have actually served and who are currently serving. So anybody who wants to fact check me, please let me know in the comments below, and then I could obviously correct myself, but if I'm right, then you can just shut up. No. And then we can keep it pushing. So as far as I know, 6 to 7% of the United States population from coast to coast, we're talking about Maine all the way to Southern California, Alaska, including our territories like Guam, Puerto Rico, Samoa, and the Virgin Islands. So out of all those territories, and like I said, from coast to coast, only 6 to 7% of the United States population are either veterans who have served in different wars, are active duty, or Guard or Reserve. And I'm talking about all 5 branches: Coast Guard, Air Force, Marines, Army, Navy. So that means that only 6 to 7% of the United States population actually have knowledge of what goes on in the military. So obviously 93, 94, or 95% of the United States population don't know anything about the military. Now, what we see in Hollywood and what's highlighted, obviously we've all seen movies and shows that have to deal with the military lifestyle. However, there's always a main story around it, so you really don't know what it's like to be in the military. All we end up learning is that the military helps the Transformers, Tom Cruise gets the girl, and Forrest Gump got shot in the butt. So as I mentioned, how Hollywood doesn't really depict certain things, and sometimes it's unrealistic, but we do see our troops fighting our wars, obviously dying in the wars, and also hanging around with the locals, but they're always depicted as enemies. Like during my 2 deployments in Afghanistan, I met some awesome people, some awesome locals, some Afghanis, either kids or adults who were just nice people. Everybody isn't out to get you. Like I'm only assuming during World War II that our American troops met some nice Japanese people, met some nice German people, and also just meeting genuinely nice people who aren't trying to harm us and aren't involved in the war. So as far as the mental health aspect that I want to talk to you guys about, again, I want to just tell you guys about stuff that isn't shown by Hollywood. Like obviously people who haven't been to Afghanistan don't know how we eat, how we talk, how we breathe, how sand gets into everything, how it's just normal to feel that, hey, you might die that day. And the longer you're there, the reality really sets in, and it's harder to shake that off as soon as you come back home. Now, I was fortunate enough to serve with amazing people. I served with all 5 branches. I seen the Coast Guard there, the Army there, the Marines, the sailors, and the Air Force. We were all there actually boots on ground, and boots on ground means that our boots were actually touching the soil. Because under certain circumstances, people don't touch the ground. People are just either flying over dropping bombs, or like the Navy, some of them are located in the Gulf of Iran, so they really don't have to touch the ground when they can just throw missiles from the Gulf. But yes, sailors are also there, boots on ground. Other than American troops, I also served with different countries. That was probably the best part of serving in Afghanistan, just because you get to meet so many people from different countries. We got all the NATO countries who are serving with us. All those countries, they have their own section on base, but sometimes you're allowed to go over there and eat with them. And the cool part about it is that they also bring their culture. Like let's say this, for example, South Korea. Now South Korea goes with us to Afghanistan. I'm not sure if they're currently still there, but at the time when I was serving, they were there, and man, their chow hall was amazing. They flew in Korean chefs and cooks from South Korea, and they would make some amazing authentic Korean food. It was so awesome. The bad part about it, which I understand, was that they only allowed 20 foreign people into the Korean chow hall each meal. So if you wanted to eat there, you had to hurry up and get in line. But hey, it was worth it. And as I mentioned, there's certain things that people don't really think about when you're in Afghanistan. Like how I was mentioning how sand gets into everything. Literally, sand, man, everything. You think you have a Ziploc bag, you have it sealed somewhere else in the safe or wherever, it doesn't matter. Inside that bag, you're gonna have some sand. Sand gets in everything. So with sand, you also have sandstorms, and those suck. I remember during my first tour in Afghanistan, it never fails. We always had a sandstorm at 2 o'clock. I don't know if the environment was just playing with us or if the Taliban had a weather machine and they were just messing with us by causing sandstorms at 2 o'clock on the dot. But there's a lot of things that people don't know while you're serving over there. One thing that people think is sad when I mention it, well, let me at least explain it like this. Now, as I mentioned, I served 2 tours in Afghanistan, and I like to avoid talking about certain things that obviously are depicted in Hollywood. If people want to know about bombs, shootings, dead bodies, and all that stuff, well, go watch a movie. Or you could go over there yourself. But one thing I like mentioning are things that I liked about Afghanistan. Now, people think this is funny when I say it, but it's the truth. And people who have been to Afghanistan, they will tell you I'm not lying. Now, I'm currently out of the military, and I have no desire to go back to Afghanistan. However, I will go back to Afghanistan if they still had the chocolate chip cookies that were amazing. Yes, I love the chocolate chip cookies that they served us in Afghanistan. I haven't been to Afghanistan in like 10 years, but to this day, I still can't find a chocolate chip cookie that is more delicious than the ones in Afghanistan. I don't know what it was about those cookies. I don't know why they're so delicious. I don't know why they were so addicting. Those cookies had me like Tyrone Biggums off of Dave Chappelle, talking about, yo, you guys got some of those chocolate chip cookies? I was straight fiending for these cookies. I have no idea why these damn chocolate chip cookies were so delicious. Years later, I actually found out they had a secret ingredient. That secret ingredient was crack. Nah, I'm just playing. You believed it? You believed it? Anyway, I don't care what anybody says. If you're trying to prove me wrong, hey, send me some chocolate chip cookies, let me know in the comments, and I'll let you know. So yes, I'll go back to Afghanistan for the cookies. Now, I say this because, like I mentioned, how the South Koreans had their own cafeteria or chow hall, however you want to call it, and they had some amazing, authentic food. Now, in Afghanistan, I have to say that we have the best food. We have pancakes, French toast, cereal, eggs cooked any type of way. You can have omelets, all your favorite breakfast meals that you want. And for lunch, you can have burgers, fries, you can have vegetables, potatoes, and for dinner, whew, dinner. For dinner, steak, shrimp, and lobster every Friday. It never fails. Also, I forgot to mention, there's also different tents. Like I gave you the example of the South Koreans, how they have their own chow hall. Well, there's other countries who are there who also have their own chow hall. Like people from New Zealand, people from Poland, the French, and also including our army, our Marines, and our sailors. These guys will create their own tent. One of my favorite tents that the Americans made is the barbecue tent. These dudes are straight up flying some German steak from Germany, and they would just cook it up and put a southern feel on it, and it actually feels like you're eating some soul food. They make some cornbread and all that stuff. And obviously, you know they didn't do that without making some sweet tea. Now here's the awful truth where people get sad because I'm telling them why we get the best meals. Now, since we're in Afghanistan, death is imminent. You could die literally at any second. So technically, every meal you eat can be your last meal. So yes, you are eating amazing meals, but it's because it might be your last meal. And that's a big pill to swallow when you really think about it. But at the moment, pass those chocolate chip cookies, you know what I'm saying? You know, sometimes I get tired of talking about how good the food is over there, because one thing I hate about military culture is that it's always a de-measuring contest. So it's always like, oh, well, you know, we do this better than you guys or whatever. So like, you know how I mentioned how the Navy is usually on a boat in the Gulf of Iran or ship, however they want to call it. Well, sometimes other military branches, like let's say the Marines or Army, I'm just gonna call everybody out. I'm just putting everybody in the same boat. Sometimes other people in different branches, they'll disrespect the Navy by saying, oh, you guys never get off your ship. Just stuff like that to be disrespectful to the Navy. But the Navy's there. I mean, they deploy with us. It doesn't matter if you're on the ship and you never get off or if you're actually on the ground dodging bullets. To me, it's all the same thing. We're all deployed. We're all away from our families. We're all in a place where we don't want to be. We're all hot and we are just trying to do our part in the war. So when it comes to me speaking about food, I guarantee somebody will say, oh, well, I had to eat powdered bananas and you guys were able to eat bananas. Like, what? You know, yes. Sometimes war is tougher for some people. It depends on what base you're at. Yes, at times we do eat MREs or ready-to-eat meals that you sometimes see in the Hollywood pictures. And that's something you always hear about when you think about military people eating at war. And yes, that all happens, but I hate when people start degrading or just shaming people just because they have a real banana. You know, if you're a military member that, I don't know, gets stuck in a hole in a mountain somewhere in Afghanistan and for months all you get to eat is an MRE, don't complain about it because you chose your job. So if somebody else in Afghanistan is able to eat a real banana or a steak, shrimp, and lobster, they're still there in the war, obviously dodging bombs or bullets, but you're just complaining because they have something good to eat. And let's be real, for the military members who are stuck in that hole on that mountain or in that cave in that mountain in Afghanistan, you best believe that commanders are sending steak, shrimp, and lobster all the way to those caves on the Black Hawk just so you can stop crying. So let's be real, if a military member wants to come in here, start hating just because I'm talking about steak, shrimp, and lobster. So go ahead with your de-measuring contest. That's on you, man. We both know the truth about how it is out there. Now that's just one aspect about what's not depicted in Hollywood. Now forgive me for picking on Hollywood because obviously they have a story to tell, but I'm just assuming that I'm speaking to the 93, 94, 95% of the United States population who don't know what we have to deal with. So I'm just trying to find a way so I can just talk to you guys about it and give you guys good examples. So besides the food, another aspect that you guys don't see in your Hollywood movies are the medications that we have to take while we're serving over there. Now before we go to countries like Afghanistan, Iraq, Turkey, Kyrgyzstan, Qatar, or any Middle Eastern country, we have to take a lot of medication to be ready to serve out there. As I mentioned in other videos, we have certain immunizations that we have to take, which include smallpox, typhoid, anthrax shots, all that stuff that's over there that might harm us while we're serving over there. So my story has to deal with a lot of the medication that we have to take while we're serving. So I was 19 during my first tour to Afghanistan. I just got in the military and literally maybe, I don't know, 6 months into my new base, I was already in Afghanistan. I remember celebrating my first year anniversary in the military while I was serving my first tour in Afghanistan. So that's how fast I was sent over there as soon as I got into the military. So obviously we had to take some immunization shots just to be over there, but we also needed to take some medication prior, during our time there, and after our return from our tour. Now one of the pills that we had to take was called mefloquine. And this pill was to help prevent malaria. Now, I want to read to you guys verbatim what it says online about the side effects of that pill. So, according to emedicinehealth.com, this pill can cause sun headaches, ringing in the ears, dizziness, loss of balance, severe anxiety, severe depression, paranoia, hallucinations, seeing or hearing things that are not real, confusion, unusual behavior, thoughts of suicide, or hurting yourself. It can cause seizures, shortness of breath, and liver problems. Yes, all that. Now, let me tell you a little bit about my experiences with mefloquine. Now when I first started taking it, I didn't really feel anything, and honestly I didn't want to take it because I don't really like taking pills, but the pill was mandatory, and they kind of put it to me like this. They said, look Diaz, malaria can make you poop your guts out, literally, or you just want to risk the side effects of this pill that's mandatory. So obviously I have no choice, and I really don't want to poop out my guts, so obviously I started taking it. So yes, people do die out there because of malaria stuff, but like I said, that's a different story for now. Now during my first weeks, during my first tour, I had a few cool supervisors who had a medical background, and they would explain to me how this pill is going to make me feel. And honestly, I didn't really believe it, just because, I don't know, I was just a naive 19-year-old kid who wasn't into taking pills, and I never experienced certain things, like I never hallucinated and I never saw things that weren't there. So when my bosses would tell me that the pill was gonna mess with me, I really didn't understand what they were talking about. So let me explain what happened. So our living quarters were tight. We had to sleep in an 8-man wooden hut. It was cool, it wasn't that bad, but me as the lowest ranking person, I kind of got the worst spot, which obviously I understand because, well, I was literally the lowest ranking person. I was in the room with sergeants who were at least in their 30s or in their late 20s. And obviously, I'm the little ranking E3, 19-year-old kid, fresh out of high school. Obviously, in that situation, I'm always gonna get the worst of everything. But it's okay, that's the way the totem pole goes. So as I started to get to know my coworkers, we would just talk, and the pills were sometimes mentioned. However, it was just weird to talk about it because you don't wanna seem weak to talk about stuff that's really messing with you. Because you're in Afghanistan and the environment, yes, it's crazy. I mean, as far as, you know, death, and you're literally in a war, you know, so you want to stay sane and you don't really want to talk about certain things. But I started overhearing some of my coworkers talk about certain nightmares that they were having. And me, I wasn't having nightmares at the time. And also as a teenager or growing up, I wasn't the type to suffer from nightmares or having problems with my sleep, or obviously, like I mentioned, I never hallucinated and I wasn't paranoid. So I started asking my coworkers about how they felt and what the pill was actually doing to them. And they were telling me that they were just having realistic nightmares. So I went to my bosses who had the medical background and I was asking them, hey man, what's up with this pill that we're taking?